Hey guys, what's up? It's TooMuchSlop, and I'm very excited to be recording for like the first time in a very long time with my old microphone, but it's basically my new microphone because it's being used as if it's new because I haven't used it in so long. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I almost felt like I was getting a little bit fatigued today from the recording and whatnot. But I think really no matter what, it's always going to come back to talking. Like even if I'm burnt out from talking, I I just think I'm always going to end up talking or like recording something. Even if I didn't end up posting it, I just don't know really what else there is to do. It's just my thing. It's just this is how I roll. I wanted to kind of talk about myself, but then I changed my mind and I've been wanting to do this video on my 4 branches of isolation and my introverts aren't real theories. So I'm deciding to do that. I wasn't really sure what I was going to go with. I'm not even really sure about the mic settings exactly because I still probably have to tweak with them. And I was tweaking with them a little bit before the episode started. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I didn't spend that much time because I'm a little bit antsy to record, a little bit excited to record. I was almost very confused. But anyways, I figured out the new paint. I'm used to the old paint. I'm old school, Windows 7, and this is like different. So, anyways, to start off, I think it's important to touch on the monoculture as like maybe a bit of a prerequisite. I think it's relevant to the concept of explaining why introverts aren't real and why a lot of people are having so many social issues. So obviously, I see the monoculture as being from, the end of it was like the 2000s and the 2010s. And really, once the 2020s and even the late 2010s, really, that was the end of it. And what has happened is hyperindividuality has occurred where celebrities and cultural things used to be very much known by everybody. A lot of celebrities from the 2000s and 2010s are still kind of the most well-known faces. Even the 90s, right? That kind of time period. A lot of newer celebrities from the 2020s are not super well known. There's probably some exceptions to that. I mean, Sabrina Carpenter blew up a lot, but she was sort of from a previous era that people would have known her from Disney. So I'm not sure exactly if that counts. But I'm talking about like artists or celebrities who really came up fully, post 2020. They didn't have any relevance pre 2020. And also, even still, I'd seen a video like Sabrina Carpenter's kind of a interesting example because there was something with like the Spotify algorithm that kind of just everything came together for her. So I'm not certain that that's even a true counter argument to my point, but the biggest names, Kanye West, he's old now. He's like, but he still gets play, although I guess his relevance has faded, but everybody knows him. He could be one of the most known celebrities, and he's old. He's not like new. Drake is very well known. All these people are from the 2000s or the 2010s. The biggest pop stars or rappers, like they're not from 2020s and onward. And I have a feeling that things will remain that way because of the change to a very hyper individualistic culture where now you have lots of micro celebrities that fit these created niches that now exist. You have to remember the human psychology behind it, of how we will just continue to dig and dig and dig until there really is until nothing, right? People, if they are given the option, will usually delve further and further down rabbit holes. And this causes the hyperindividuality. Because with platforms like TikTok or Reels or whatever, it's very short and it's very catered to you. Your page does not look the same as anybody else's. That's the critical difference between the 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2020s. You used to have common nostalgia. My theory of common nostalgia is that people from previous generations had not even just more common values, but they had more common shows that they watched for fun. Things that were fun that they did were very likely to be shared. To go back before video games even, you just had sports, and there's just a couple different sports: baseball, football, soccer, hockey. You have a few different sports, to kind of, obviously there's like an element of individualism, but it's very collective. There's no hyper catering. It's not like there's some perfect game for you. But now, with the advent of video games, there are thousands, if not millions, of games to play. And they are all very catered in a very different, specific way to where you could find something that is almost specifically catered to you. Doesn't that sound great? Well, it's not, because in doing so, I think Roblox is the easiest way to describe this phenomena, because Roblox has such a extreme. I think Roblox is one of the most modern examples of gaming, where it is truly taking the monoculture idea, the polyculture, I guess I will call it. The polycultural idea into effect most clearly. So before, you had like a few games that like everybody kind of knew, the DS and the Wii. You might have had some obscure games, but most people all played the same stuff. But in Roblox, it's like, there's thousands, if not millions, of games. Now, there's probably not millions. That's kind of crazy, but there's thousands, if not millions. And that leads to a lot of games dying now. It's like they have to get updated or you lose interest, right? A lot of people just stop playing because they're not getting updated anymore and they get tired of it. And when they open their Roblox, there's like a bunch of new suggestions and they want to just do something else, get bored, get over it, move on. And that just continues to erode the brain and erode the culture. And it makes it so that everybody is doing different things. Some people are playing games that aren't even relevant. Because again, everything truly does come back to social. If you do something that is asocial, it is most likely not going to lead to anything good. Most likely. And we can get more into that later, but I hope that I've been able to convey this. I have my theory of common nostalgia, my theory of hyperindividuality. I hope that they make sense, or this concept is able to make sense to you. People are very different from one another now. We don't necessarily listen to the same music anymore. We don't know the same songs because there's so much different music coming out. Everybody's trying to be a star. Everybody's trying to be a celebrity. The numbers show it. If you look at music videos from the 2010s, they had some of the most viewed things and everybody knew it and it was very connected, and now it's not really like that. People don't know the new artists. And same goes with celebrities, right? People end up liking certain people on TikTok and following them as if, they're a micro celebrity that may have more specific caterance to a specific person. But in terms of a broad sense, it's not. They're not really that special, or they might just be kind of... And so there's a lot of noise because not only that, too, in the past, its idolizing has changed. I mean, people used to really idolize a smaller group of people and really see them as special. Now you might have your TikTok and you might follow a slew of creators and watch multiple different people. And then in a couple of months, you might get bored of them and just find other people. That change did not really happen, and it wasn't as frequent in the past. If you had a favorite celebrity or you were a fan, I'm assuming you kind of stayed as that fan, kind of for a while. I don't think people really rapidly changed or lost interest in the people they were interested in. I think it was very... if you liked Kanye, you always liked Kanye, for years or whatever. And there was not really so much of a change. Of course, people are going to say, well, people always change their mind. But it's been hyper accelerated, the rate in which people do change their minds. That's what I'm trying to get at. And you're consuming so many different people. And what ends up happening is it just completely diminishes everything. Any meaning, any significance in life is lost as a result of the short form content and the reduction of attention span and this constant flurry of people. Nobody's really famous anymore. Nobody can really penetrate and crack that barrier to get into mythic levels of stardom like that happened back in the 2000s, 2010s, prior. I mean, even if you go back further, it was even more so, right? I feel like the Beatles were everybody just kind of liked them. Elvis, these names are they've just lasted in a way that Ken Carson or Destroy Lonely is not. They're not. Some people may not even know who they are, even though they're kind of current. Yeet. I mean, they're not going to last. Those names are not going to be relevant in the same way. They're not going to reach the same level of significance. And it's scary. It's been scary for me as somebody who knows they're going to be famous, navigating that landscape, that I kind of missed the window where there was that mythic chance to become legendary. Although I like to be hopeful, and I do think it's possible that I have specific strong suits and I will be able to strategically manipulate the system to get to where I know I'm destined to be at. Right. I hope you understand the premise of the monoculture and my theory of hyperindividuality and all that stuff. The theory of common nostalgia, how now it's, your For You page is different than somebody else's, and you're not going to have the same nostalgia. You're not going to be able to reminisce in the same way. In my generation, We all watched the same movies. We would all talk about them. It was cool. Now, that's not really necessarily the case. I mean, it probably holds up to an extent, don't get me wrong, but you get the message I'm trying to say. It's different. There's a fractured nostalgia. Everybody, and it's gotten worse. I think, again, even in the beginning with TikTok and Insta Reels or whatever, I don't think it was as bad. I think it has gotten worse to where you did have certain trends and things. You did have them, and there was a little bit of nostalgia. I don't really think it happens anymore. I think there is a death that is coming about. And I think my work is going to be incredibly influential going into the 2030s. I think my finger is on the pulse, and these lessons and just kind of vibes are totally going to fall into place, because this is really the beginning of my theories and understanding of psychology. There's so much refinement and evolution that is going to occur, and it's crazy. I mean, I'm not an expert now. Like I'm in the rough draft stage. I'm just in the rough draft stage. So the hyperindividuality is that humans need to have something in common in order to bond. And in the past, people were not as different from one another. There was always a level of distinguishability from two different people, but there was never this hyper individuality where you have people who essentially specifically sorry, I'm getting notifications. Like I said, I'm keeping it rough. This is all like preliminary. I probably will re-record. I mean, it might even be smarter to do like separate segments. But I just really want to get to this like the theories of isolation that I have. It's been something that's on my mind. I want to get it on paper and just post it. So hyperindividuality is that essentially if you compare the way people are now to the way people were in the past, there's more of a difference and less of an ability to bond due to more exaggerated differences as a result of using short form content, having access to such a diverse amount of different viewpoints that, again, back in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s, TV was just TV. I mean, I think everybody just kind of like, I don't know, didn't question things as much, although I guess questioning, the rebellion kind of stuff did start around the 60s. So I guess that kind of began, but still, in comparison to the way things are now, you did not have access to so many different perspectives, and you just probably believed what you believed. I mean, you might have rebelled a little bit, but you couldn't really rebel a lot. And a lot of there wasn't, I don't know, like you just kind of went along with things back then in a lot of ways. And the rebellion they did have was not as complicated or strange, and people were not as asocial. A lot of activities and hobbies people had were usually rooted with people or connected to people. You did have TV, but TV is not as distracting as a phone. A phone is substantially more distracting. Short form content is substantially more distracting than a long form movie or TV series. And so it makes it harder for us to bond with one another. It makes us harder to make friends. It's especially harder to get into a relationship, let alone just make friends, And there's no advantage. There is zero advantage because, yes, you get more specific catered to you, but what does the brain do? The brain just gobbles that up, and then now it's normal. And it doesn't feel good. It's not like when you go on TikTok, you're like really impressed. No, it just becomes normal. It just feels normal. Maybe like the first time you used it, it really felt strong, but it just becomes normal. But now you're in a state that is so over the top, and there's no reason, like there's no benefit. There's zero benefit. You've just destroyed your attention span, and now you can't even do anything, and then it doesn't even feel that strong anyway because your brain's just going to normalize to it. And then that's the problem. Then there's no advantage, but you're left in this like hyper-individualistic state where you can't get along with other humans, which is a huge problem, obviously, because all happiness really stems from social. And that's universal for everybody, even people who are introverts or even claim to be antisocial. Because really, even choosing to be antisocial, there would have to be a social standard there to begin with. And I think a lot of times people kind of do it for the vibe or for attention. And the only reason why the vibe or attention exists is because there is a comprehensive social structure to rebel against. If everybody's rebelling against everything, then it then becomes more rebellious to actually follow the rules. And it also just completely reduces any value in the rebellion. If everybody acts like that, if everybody's fractured, what is special about going against the grain if there is no grain to go against? And it's beneficial and important, and I would say very necessary, to have this connected semblance of culture. You can't have a functioning society the direction we're going in. And people are very much showing that. There's been a dramatic trend in the increase of medication use, increase of health issues. These are problems because they put a significant strain on the system and they cost a lot. It's part of the main reason why you have cost of living issues. I know there's additional politics and corruption to it, but health insurance would cost less if people were healthier. And one of the main components of health is having those loving, caring, social connections, which you used to not have to put any effort into achieving because you just had your family around and there was nothing really to distract you. So if you got bored, you talked. But now when we get bored, we don't talk because we have a screen that can do whatever we want. And in order to talk to another person, there has to be some level of compromise or some level of conformity, and that takes effort. It takes effort compared to going on your algorithm and having everything catered to you. And that is the whole problem. People are choosing the path of least resistance because it's easier. But the long-term ramifications are very bad because now you're a social, intelligent creature who is unable to actually fulfill or achieve any of the intelligence that they're supposed to be able to achieve. And so no kidding, there's going to be depression or anxiety because you're failing at like one of the most fundamental things, social. If you look back, because I think now we can get into the isolation. I think I've given enough of a prerequisite. I probably could have explained it better. And at some point, I would like to maybe make dedicated videos on my theory of common nostalgia and my theory of hyperindividuality. But for now, I'm hoping that gets the gist to get into my theories of the 4 branches of isolation. So, is isolation natural? That is the first question. If you're a member of modern society, you would probably say yes. A lot of people enjoy isolation. A lot of people gravitate to it. They look fondly at isolation. But believe it or not, isolation is a privilege. It's not something that everybody has access to. It is typically only available to a minority percentage of the populace. People who are in poverty have a much lower chance of having access to isolation. If you're rich, it's a privilege. And it's not just about wealth. It's also other privileges, right? Because it has to do with the other people you surround yourself with and how competent they are at being respectful, being kind. Some people are very chill, and then you have the benefit of getting isolation. But a lot of people do not have access to isolation. So it is very important to have the awareness that having alone time, being isolated, is a privilege. It is not anything anybody is entitled to, and most people are forced to, whether they want to or not, go out in the world every day and have to deal with people to varying degrees depending on your job. But you cannot isolate. It is a privilege if you can. And a lot of people who are younger do not understand this, and they milk it, and I don't think there's any thought ever about it, so they just take it for granted. But it is true. Being alone and having that choice is a privilege, because how it really should work is you should have to work to have money to pay rent, and then you get space if you're able to. It's a give and take. That's how things should work. Even with a house, it's the same thing. You have to work, you have to contribute to society, and then society gives you something in return. In that case, it would be a home, and it would be the privilege to be alone. But that's something that you should have to work for and earn, which obviously is not the case in present day, really the world, but I guess I see through America's lens, because a lot of people live with their parents, and their parents don't really do anything. And of course, I'm a benefit of that too. So I'm not I'm not saying like I'm better, because like I'm not. Obviously, I have had a very slow start and was very lazy for a while, and still am in a lot of ways, specifically around like cleaning up. So I don't want to act like I'm saying these things like I have it all figured out, because I don't, but I'm aware of things. And I think it's just always something I've been thinking, and I like to try to be aware of what's going on, have my finger on the pulse, right? So I just don't want to come across that way, because I'm not really trying to reprimand anybody, because I don't believe that it's people's fault. I think it's environmental. I think it stems from poor leadership in government, poor role models. And so, no, I'm not coming at anybody or saying that anybody's really doing anything wrong. We as humans have to navigate a very tricky environment. And I do think it's mostly environmental. Obviously, there's genetics and willpower, but that's kind of luck. I mean, environment is luck too, but really, it's a tough environment out there. And I think the biggest issue is, again, a lack of good leadership, good rules, and good role models. Easily. is the main problem. I'm not coming at anybody. I think we're all pretty broken from what we've had to go through. And I am too. You know, my life could have been a lot different if it wasn't for technology or just a lack of structure. So I don't say this saying that I'm better, because I'm trying to speak for all of us. These are struggles and things that everybody goes through. I think we all do. And I just want to shed light on it so that maybe we could spark some kind of a movement to change and have at least some of us who are real, are living, have a soul, have a spirit. I think it's important to try, and I think that my message is going to resonate with a good amount of people. I don't think that it's going to be obscure forever. I think that it's right on cue. I think I'm coming at the right time. Anyways, I tend to do that. I tend to ramble about something, and then now I forget what I was getting at or what I was saying. Interesting, right? That I do that. Isolation. Negative. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to rewind, and I guess we'll just start. So I think I remember, I'm assuming this is where I was. I'm assuming. Back when there still is tribes, like the original kind of like living pre-development, things are very like simple, and you probably have to spend a lot of time with people. I don't think you really have much of a choice, just kind of for survival. I think another thing I was going to mention too, when it comes to the entitlement of isolation, is if you can live in the wilderness and you go out and do that, that's fine, because you're not dependent on other people. But the second money's involved, you're immediately dependent on other people who don't isolate and have to work and have to do things they don't want to do. Sorry, that pause was because I was just thinking in my head how all this changes when robots come into the picture, and then does that change how we even view labor? So maybe my finger's not on the pulse after all. Maybe it's gonna fail miserably. But for now, we're talking about assuming robots do not make everybody lazier, and there is still tangibility to life. Yeah, maybe a discussion for a different video, but I'm kind of surprised I didn't really take that into account. But evidently, even people who are rich, they're dependent on poor people to work to make the money valuable. If people didn't work, money has no value. Even if you're rich, it doesn't really matter. It's poor people who make money valuable. It's the people who work that make money valuable. If nobody worked, money would not be valuable. So it's not like rich people having money has any value. It's only valuable because of workers who will do stuff for money, right? I don't know if people really have that awareness. Of course, there's also desire. There's gold is valuable for certain things, and it's desired. But again, without the desire, without the social, where's the meaning in it? It's technically worthless. If nobody wanted it, it would be up for grabs. So everything that we operate through is so socially dependent. Even people who are allegedly antisocial or asocial, they're most likely still using money, and therefore they're directly benefiting off of the hard work of other people. So it's kind of ridiculous to be able to choose to isolate or to act like I'm antisocial, I'm rebellious, I'm going to just stay in the house all day. because you're still using money and you're still functioning within a system that only works because people work and there are poor people. Like, it's just so out of touch, I think, to just make the assumption that, like, I'm an introvert. I don't like to go outside. I don't like it is a privilege to even fathom that. That's such a extreme comfort and privilege. It is not something that's normal, and it never was normal, and it is not normal for the human psyche, despite coming across that way. So, if you look at tribes and humans before tribes even, there was always like an extreme incentive to be together. There's basically no incentive to not team up. I mean, if you were a human, being alone is really risky. I mean, it's like we made civilizations for a reason, right? It would be so risky if you were alone in the wilderness versus like having even just one other person. It's just so it's absurd to even think about. I don't even like there would be no reason, absolutely no reason why a human would ever choose isolation. And I think you see it in other social animals as well. Like, usually they move in packs. Usually they're not solitary. And it's because there's so much strength in numbers. There's so much more potential in groups than just singular. I mean, you see it all over nature and all types of different animals for survival. It makes absolutely no sense why anybody would be an introvert. It just doesn't. There's just so limited. The only thing I could think of was like, obviously humans would be alone. Let's say if you happen to go hunting, you might be alone. But then I realized even that doesn't really make any sense because it would still be more advantageous to hunt as a group. It would not make more sense for you to go out of your way to hunt alone. And that was like my whole kind of like counter argument for a while. But then it vanished because I realized that, like, even if that's the only time I think space would have even happened. Because why else would a human have space if you're in the wilderness and maybe you have like a small tribe? Why would you, I mean, tribes exist for a reason, right? It's because it's so much more beneficial than being alone. And so we have to think about, are introverts an artificial cultivation? And I think the answer to that is probably yes. Because I don't really think if there was a human who was a loner back then, I just don't think their genes would have passed on. Like, I can't understand how they would have just died. There's no way somebody who was, like, antisocial would have been able to get to the point of reproducing. It's just, it's so risky. The chances are so low given all the extra risk that comes with isolation and being alone, especially back then when there wasn't even any development. It makes no sense to me why introverts would even exist. So I don't think they did. And it must be some kind of a reaction to interacting with the modern landscape. Because I cannot, for the life of me, have zero comprehension of why it exists. Well, I mean, I have some theory. I don't have zero comprehension. I have some ideas. So let's get into my 4 branches of isolation. So first branch is selfish. Wait, I'm not going to do it like that. Actually, no, that's that's more fun. Let's go with fun. Selfish. That is the first sector. Then we have selfless. Right? Simple enough. I'm like trying to think of filler to say while I'm, and then like also if I'm even spelling this stuff correctly. That would be crazy. Then we have unproductive and productive. Right? Now, I want to get into what each of these mean. I mean, it should be self-explanatory, but I want to kind of give my 2 cents about it. Right? Because that's why you're here. You're not here to not be told anything. You're here to be a listener. And sorry, it's a little bit difficult to write and talk at the same time, but I think I'm doing a pretty good job. Selfish isolation is when you're choosing to isolate for yourself. This one can be good or bad, but I'm trying to think of what I'm going to write. Yeah, I don't know if I really have anything to write for now. But yeah, selfish isolation can be good because it is possible. Well, you know what though? I think there's obviously a pretty clear like kind of distinction I'm trying to make here. I don't know if I really want to use that color. There's a pretty clear distinction I'm trying to make between these 4 segments. That is a much smarter way of doing it. Shows that. Actually, I'm not really so I know, the visual don't even matter. Someday this video could be, I just realized I said production. Oh my goodness. You guys are, I said that too. I said that I was going to like misspell something. And you guys have been sitting here laughing at me this whole time, not even helping me out. It's like crazy. Crazy what the world's come to, right? I'm putting my heart on the line, and you guys aren't even here. Not even there for me. Selfish, I think it can be good, but I think it's actually, no, it's not the worst. Obviously, this is like the worst. This is easily, I mean, there's really not any reason for that. And then this is probably the most important. I think these get a little bit gray, but I think like this is more of a this, and I'm going to say that this is more of a this. Like we're going to be like, it's either that or that. It's like kind of a yellow, kind of a green. I think this is good as like a premise. A lot of times, like people who need space say they need it because, oh, like I need time to heal. I just need space. It's healing for me. It's good for me to be alone. And then what do they do when they're alone? Oh, like I took a quote unquote mental health day and I just scrolled TikTok for 8 hours. Did you really get anything out of that, though? Like, is that any reflection, any, I guess it depends on the content you're watching, of course, but chances are you didn't really improve your situation, like, at all. There wasn't really any healing that occurred. And it even begs the question as to, like, really how much healing occurred, because I think, and I mean, this is a bit of an assertion, it's not directly factually oriented. I'm pretty sure short form content is draining. Like, I don't think it's restorative to the human brain So if you take part in it, like, that's not healing. It's not healing just because something feels good, although I guess that is somewhat true, right? But it's the same concept of like binge eating as like a coping. I mean, does it help? I guess it does. But most likely it's not really helping, because even the little that it did help in the moment, you're then dealing with worse health, which is going to make your hormones messed up, which has to do with emotional regulation. Insulin release directly is correlated with issues like if you binge a bunch of sugar, that is really bad. It does not have good mental effects. So when people try to make I had a bad day, like I'm going to eat a whole thing of ice cream, most likely that doesn't make any sense. Like, if anything, it makes sense to do those things as a celebratory. Like, if you're feeling good and you kind of want to splurge, that's kind of fine. But if you're in a vulnerable state, doing those kind of activities just completely doesn't make any sense. This is a total side tangent, but I guess it's given you guys some time to process these 4 ideas before I talk about them. So selfish is when you do isolation and it's just for yourself. It's not leading to anything for anybody else. It's just for you. Now, some examples of this is TikTok, potentially doing drugs, right? I mean, that doesn't really have, unless you were doing it with other people. Watching TV shows and movies is most likely, but that can be different, because TV shows, movies, literature that is sort of like here. That is the wrong thing. TV shows, movies, literature. I wonder how I'm going to like do this. I will draw like a book here. TV shows, movies, literature. They are kind of like an in between, because there's a chance like you're watching a show and then that will later lead to a conversation with somebody. Although anymore, I barely even hear people like talk about it. Like I don't know, but it's bonding, right? I think if you watch a show and then you talk to somebody and then they also watch it. So that's why I'm putting it in the middle. But the problem is, if you're watching a show that is like not going to later help you socially. I just realized there's more branches. There's selfish social and selfish asocial, I think. And then same with selfless social and selfless asocial. Well, no, I mean, there is no selfish. There's probably not a selfless asocial, because how could you do something for somebody else and have I don't think that would be the case. I mean, I have to give it more thought, but I don't think, I think selfless is just selfless. So I think that is really what I was going for. I didn't even think about that until just now, though. So it's like, I think that's like an important distinction to make, and how this is obviously like the worst. The asocial is the worst, and the social is like the more neutral. Can be pretty good. But it depends. I mean, it all depends, right? Because there's nuance to understanding this. But yeah. Now, obviously, humans, when they are rolling around through life, they are not thinking of any of this stuff. I mean, you just have like a screen in front of you and you just kind of do whatever you want. And then if randomly things work out, then they work out. And if they don't, then they don't. Right. And it's just, I mean, that's like how it is. There's not really any direction. People don't really want to be told what to do. And I think there's a lot of problems with that. But the truth is, it didn't need to be thought of before because it just didn't, right? Like there were naturally systems in place that like nobody had to think. People just did the right thing, basically. I mean, you had some freedom. Of course you had some. But it wasn't like you could fall that far, I guess, is the point. Like, how far could you fall? Like, you didn't have that much freedom. You probably had, like, stricter parents and definitely stricter schooling. And I am just realizing the thing is a little off. But my computer's having some issues because I'm assuming it's because of a lack of the GPU, which is a big problem. And it makes it so it just starts like lagging out randomly. Like the cursor doesn't really. It's very annoying. So I'm having like a super hard time right now, but I'm trying to keep it together. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna lose my mind. My OCD adjacent self is like really upset right now. But I'm gonna grin and bear it, and you're gonna get a really sloppy. No, I gotta do a better job than that. Like seriously. Who am I if I can't? Why does that A is just like bothering me? All right. So let's finally get into the meat of this. Oh, I think we're done with selfish, or maybe we're not. Maybe I will finally try to give like a clear. So asocial is when you do something selfishly that has zero social future and it's just for yourself. I think you can kind of imagine it's like if you're just reading a book to read a book, but you're never going to talk to anybody about it. Maybe you're reading something that is weird or you're not really comfortable with sharing with somebody. That would be asocial, selfish. That is like very bad. Obviously, it most likely does not lead to happiness or any type of I suppose you could do it occasionally, but it really is risky when it comes to happiness. Then you have social selfish, which is what I talked about when you are consuming media, but you have the intention of like, oh, well, this is popular. I'm going to talk to someone about it at some point. Right? I mean, is it really I mean, it's kind of selfish, but, you know. So then you have selfless isolation, which is obviously, oh, like, I have to work. And so while you're working, you obviously can't talk to your friends or talk to your family all the time because you're working. But you're getting money, and potentially the money goes to could go to them. You could buy them gifts. If it doesn't go to them directly, you're still working, which is contributing to society, even though depending on your job, it may be isolatory. It's not really isolatory because you're doing a task, which is good, and it's it's doing a selfless isolation. You're not just isolating for yourself. You're isolating to help someone else at a future point directly. Or like with the intent. I think the money thing is kind of the best example. Like you have to work and then you get the money, but then you spend it and you might be able to help somebody. Right? And then it's selfless. So even though you're being isolatory, it's for a future connective act. It's for a future bonding act. And I think that is still good. Now, it could be bad because potentially you could be like putting yourself out there and not really getting any reciprocation out of it. That's kind of iffy. So you do kind of have, there's kind of a limit. That's why I put the yellow there. Because you still have to take care of yourself. But I think the other ones are fairly self-explanatory. But also, just to clarify, I mean, the difference between selfish social and selfless directly is selfish social is definitely more correlated with like the unproductive, whereas selfless is definitely more on the productive like side of things inherently. But again, that isn't even always the case, because like selfish, well, this gets tricky, because what would like doing your laundry be? Because it's like that's selfish asocial, but then it's social because you don't want to smell bad, because then that's kind of like not good. So it is kind of selfless. It's for like a future. So some of these are tricky. I think it'd be fun trying to like go through things and try to define and characterize them. Unproductive isolation is obviously just kind of, you're just doing entertainment. There's not really much explanation. I don't think there's any reason to do this. I think unproductive though. Here's going to be the kicker. So there's unproductive, but then, and I just thought of this now, there is destructive. And that is like that is the one you really need to avoid. I'm even going to put an exclamation point, because that is bad. And it's definitely in the unproductive. Because what I'm thinking about is, oh, you can't even read that. I'm like, So the reason why I'm thinking of this is because there are things that are unproductive, but it's like, I don't really think they're like bad. Like, I mean, you could argue that meditating is like unproductive, but I don't think it's like a bad activity, right? Like, it's not. It's positive, but it's not exactly productive. But it's not destructive. You see what I'm saying? So I think there's correlation with that. I don't know why I said there's correlation with that, because what was I getting at? What is the correlation? I think I'm just running my mouth. I think that's an example of where it's like selfish, but it's good, because selfish can be good. Taking time to give yourself space to meditate, think things over, reflect, that's a good thing. But I think that would fall under productive. It's not necessarily unproductive. I think I'm just overcomplicating it, because I assume, that's definitely productive isolation, I think. And again, there's absolutely like a place for that. I just think that isolation should usually be somber or sober. Like, I don't think you should isolate and then on top of that do something that is mind altering or overly entertaining, because I don't know, I can't really wrap my head around that. Now, of course, like, I'm a social butterfly, textbook chatterbox, but I just can't imagine how like something could be more fun alone than with other people. And I think that gets to my premise about the whole introvert thing. I think I'd mentioned this a little bit, but we're going to rewind because I don't think I did. My common example for explaining the decay. Oh, well, no, I definitely didn't, because it's hyper individual, but it's also hyper capitalist. And it's this idea that, you know, when you go to a store, like you don't know any of the people there. Like, I mean, you probably do actually, but it's kind of like a distant thing, and there's people in and out, you know, at the food store. It's not going to be the same cashier. You know, after like 2 years, they might change jobs. Then what? Right? Then you just never see them again? I don't really think that makes sense. If you think about tribes or how societies formed, I mean, a tribe, you would know everybody. Like for your whole life, unless they died. And they may be the only people you really know. I mean, you might sometimes interact with another tribe, but probably not. You probably would just know your neighbors and always know your neighbors. And you would never even have to make friends with new people. Like that wouldn't make any, like that just never happened. It only happens now because everything doesn't revolve around people, it revolves around money. So if somebody moves, they'll move like super far away, and then it's just like, bam, all your connections gone. You know, you go to high school with people, you get to know them, bam, they all go to different colleges. Who cares? Moving on. But people don't realize how radical of an idea that is given our social needs. I mean, it's incredibly destructive, and I'm really surprised more people don't talk about that. Really. So that is where we get into the introverts just not existing. I think it's possible that introverts just don't like that, and they probably just want to have a small circle that they always know and can always connect with, but they get burnt out because the circle changes. And then they thought it was meaningful bonds. It still is, really, right? I mean, when you bond with someone, you don't really forget about them. Hence why, you know, you remember your ex. It's a little painful to some extent. Some people get over it. Some people don't. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I don't really think about it anymore, like past relationships, exes and stuff. But there was a time I did, and it was very hard to go through that. And that's just my experience. I mean, some people may never be able to get over someone. And I don't know what my future is going to look like. I'd like to think that everything will go smoothly, but I mean, everybody's different in terms of how they process pain and hardship, especially with relationships. And so, yeah, some people might kind of just lose it and feel drained and not really want to engage with that system because it's not normal at all. It's very abnormal. Now, granted, humans are very adept at adapting. That's kind of fire. I didn't even adept at adapting. So there are a lot of people that just roll with the punches and, they make do. But I think you get the point. It's all kind of meaningless, Now, what I was going to say is even in later stage capitalism, but not extremely late, you would have, let's say, like a local bakery, and that's where you get your food. You might know the owner. The owner might just be there all the time, and it's like, oh, hi, how, you know them by name. How's it going? How you been? It's nice. That's not how it is anymore. It's very just random food store, random cashier that's not making a living wage. You don't know them. They're unhappy. Like, you're unhappy. Nobody's fixing it. Nobody really cares, apparently. Well, I think people care, but they can't put their finger on what's wrong. Because I've talked about this stuff to people before, and they don't even know what I'm talking. Like, they've never thought of it. But this is like the problem, right? This is it. It's that shouldn't be the case. It just shouldn't. It shouldn't be a social thing that occurs. And I think the fact that you have a government that lets it, and not only just a government, but a wealthy class that lets that happen, shows a major neglect of human decency or compassion. But I don't think people who are smart in those positions care that much. I think they might be aware of it, but they realize they kind of benefit from it. So, yeah. It's just there's a lot of draining possibilities with the way we socialize now. It's not easy. And so a lot of people are being antisocial. They're introverts. But does that mean they would be if they were in a normal environment? I'm not sure. But I think no. I think that people wouldn't need that much space. You also have to think about if you never had it. Because some people, especially like using a computer or a phone, it's almost like hypnotic. And you're like, you could spend so much time on those things and the time could just pass by. And it could almost like condition you to get used to space. Like, I wonder if there's been experiments on that. Like, if somebody from a baby, you compare it. I'm trying to think of, like, I know what I'm saying in my head, but I'm finding the words. Like an experiment, I don't know how you would do it, though, but it's like, maybe you'd, because it's a little unethical. It's a little weird, experimenting on babies. But honestly, people do it anyway with, like, iPad kids, right? So, like, what I wonder is if you have an iPad kid, does that, like, create an introvert where there may not have been one? You get what I'm saying? It's like, was that person always going to be an introvert? Or are they an introvert because their brain got accustomed to being alone from, like, a glitch? That's, I think there's plausibility to that. I don't know. Again, because I just can't understand how something could be more fun alone. Well, I say that, but of course, I do enjoy talking to myself, and that is alone. And it's difficult sometimes to talk to others. But I think that's just kind of me. And I mean, I would love to talk to other people, especially like this. But not a lot of people are receptive or available. So it's like, that's why I'm forging my own path. And that's probably by design. I think it's by design. Well, I mean, I kind of wanted to push this video, but we did make it to over an hour. I think that's fine for now. But in the future, I'd like to go longer. But my water is not here, so my throat's very dry. I hope that's not noticeable in the recording. And I feel like I got through everything. I guess I didn't touch on destructive. But the difference is unproductive could be neutral, and destructive is obviously like directly destructive. I don't really know what examples I can give, but I mean, unproductive. Well, see, because what I was going to say is like literally doing nothing, but I honestly think literally doing nothing in this day and age is productive. Like that's kind of different. That's kind of fire. Like it's almost like meditative to just do nothing. So I think it has to do with content, because some content is just like kind of neutral and unproductive, but then some content consuming is just destructive. It's just like brain rot or whatever. It's not something you want to do. I think there's obviously like a distinction between those two. I don't know how much in depth I have to go into it, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know that there's much else to add for now. I think that was a pretty good episode. I wanted to kind of push it to 2 or 3 hours, but I think in time I will. Because there's probably more to go into, but I at least recorded some of the thoughts. I think that's like a good step. Because then I can watch this, figure out what I want to go more in depth on. Obviously, there are going to be other dedicated videos for the theory of common nostalgia, the theory of hyperindividuality, etc. But yeah, I didn't really know what I was going to record. I guess I was going to talk about myself and my day, really. I think I did that a little bit at the beginning. I guess I'll do it now. I don't know. I guess I was getting a little worried about burnout, but I don't really feel burnout. So, that's an example of me doing filler. No, like I feel worry. I feel a little burnout, but then I don't know what else I'm going to do. Like, I feel like I'm just kind of, I'm like sitting at my computer and it's like, okay, we're going to start talking. Like, what else is there to do? Like, I just talk. So I think it was a good episode though. I do. So I don't know. I mean, I don't really have much else to add. I appreciate you making it this far. I don't really think many people will, but very cool. All right. Bye, guys.